Motor vehicle accidents can invoke a wide variety of emotions in people, usually on the negative side, but sometimes even on the contemplative side. Where it's most commonly expressed, though, is in rage and anger, and that can form what might or might not be constituted a road rage claim, which is generally something that an insurer won't indemnify for, and certainly something that you can't organise a non-default rental vehicle for. That does seem a bit unfair, and that in itself has to do with the legalities of it, but the question is, what actually causes rage? What actually causes anger, despite the obvious at the scene? So, in broad strokes, there are a few kinds of road rage. There's the kind of road rage where an individual gets out of the car and starts being a little bit verbally abusive. Maybe they're uncooperative, maybe they're difficult, and whilst they might be raging, as it was, or angry, as it was, there's no altercation between the individuals, there's no altercation between them and any damage to property. The other kind of road rage incident, is where another person maliciously intends to damage another person's vehicle. So they deliberately swipe into your car, or they deliberately reverse into it, or smash a windscreen, or perhaps get out and maybe there's some sort of physical exchange or some sort of damage physically done by the individual to the property of the other person. A road rage incident of the second kind is not something that an insurance company are going to indemnify for. The reason that they will not indemnify that is because basically the person has acted in a matter that is outside of the policy stipulations. The individual was acting in an unlawful manner, therefore the insurance company would not accept the claim, would not indemnify their client. That means represent them, in normal terms. The former, the first iteration of what I was discussing, an individual that is angry at the scene of an incident or uncooperative at the scene of an incident, is an interesting matter. It's probably not going to affect your claim too much at all, as there's nothing that wouldn't make either insurance company indemnify or the not-at-fault rental company not be able to supply a car. But it is common, and it's confusing to individuals because they might just think that someone's being overtly belligerent, where there's a lot actually going on in the mind. The reason for it, in a very succinct way that I would explain it, often, when an individual is driving, their subconscious mind usually will have an idea of a route, Now, that route might be from target to destination, or the route in their mind might actually be to the next part of the GPS coordinates, or whatever instructions that they happen to be getting. So, if the circumstances are right, and that person, for whatever, is operating in a subconscious modality, if there is an incident, depending on what the intent was at the end of it, in conjunction with the other matters that are already being calculated in their mind, that will cause an obstruction. And at that point, an emotional, or should I say, a neurological response will take place, where the individual will go into a fight or flight mode, and that will manifest itself in the form of rage. It's not something that the individual probably consciously thinks about it. You yourself have probably encountered it and do encounter the same thing on a day-to-day basis. Not necessarily with a motor vehicle accident, but just going about your life. It's the times you're frustrated when you're cleaning the house and something obstructs it, and you're suddenly that you feel that's what's caused it. It's very hard to control. Very, very hard to control, even for the more mentally grounded sort of individuals. It will often get the better of you. So it's not uncommon to expect that when a motor vehicle accident happens, the reason that the other person might be sparky, shall we say, or prickly, as I believe the phrase goes, according to Mr. Watts, would be because of that fight or flight instinct, When it happens, it's not just a psychological thing. Specific chemicals will release in the mind. There is a neurological effect that takes place, and the individual's behavior will be reflective of that neurological and biological process. It doesn't forgive it, but to understand what it is gives you a better understanding as to why it is. Yes. Now, an escalation of that can be the second example of road rage that I've given. Not necessarily always. There can be other factors, and it's not necessarily road rage, but something else neurologically altogether. Is this relevant to your motor vehicle accident claim? Is this relevant to your insurance claim? It can be, depending on the circumstances. particularly if there's a further investigation into it. However, suffice to say, it is interesting to understand why it is that people behave the way they do at the scene of an accident, because it can, by having an understanding of it, paint a better picture as to why the exchange took place in that matter. Now, most people are generally not uncooperative at the scene of an accident. I think most people are happy to be alive, but it can be confusing to individuals on either side of the fence, okay, fault or not at fault, as to why another person might have behaved in a manner in which they had behaved. And understanding that these subconscious reactions and subsequent conscious actions often happen instantaneously and often are a bit of a cascade. Yes, you will find yourself in them all the time on a day-to-day basis in many, many different scenarios, but in different scenarios they will amplify and modify and present themselves and manifest themselves in a particular way, which I think, from an insurance point of view and from a claim point of view, be it for insurance claim or not at fault, is absolutely fascinating. Fascinating, perhaps relevant, probably not, but interesting, an insight into certain scenarios and things that you might experience in your not at fault motor vehicle accident claim. As always, if you enjoyed this particular video, if you could like, subscribe, drop comments as you like it, we do always appreciate it. But most of all, as always, drive safe, keep safe, control those mental emotions, and have yourself a wonderful day.